McMahon, who is still on unpaid leave, and Stanford University professor. Joining me now is LAPD officer Michael McMahon, who is still on unpaid leave, and Stanford University professor, our friend Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. Michael, when did they do this to you, and what have they said to you to justify this?
Good evening, Steve. Thanks a lot for having me on, and it's an honor to share some screen time with Dr. Bhattacharya. I've been suspended since November 3rd of 2021, and the reason given was that I refused to acquiesce to the vaccine mandate set forth by the city.
And what's going on now? How are they handling this? What have you done in response, and what has their response been?
Well, since the implementation of the city's COVID ordinance, I and two other officers and one of their wives, we formed an anti-mandate coalition called Roll Call for Freedom, that's made up of LAPD officers and City of Los Angeles civilian employees. And we have been actively railing against the city's ordinance, and we filed a lawsuit in March in federal court over it.
So, Jay, I'd love you to weigh in here because, I can say my opinion, but, you're a professor at Stanford University. Just tell us, what is the scientific justification for these actions?
Steve, there is no scientific justification for these actions. The vaccine does not stop transmission. I think the idea is somehow that people who interact with the public have to be vaccinated so they don't pass the disease on. But the vaccine doesn't do that. So many people that have been vaccinated have got COVID. And so that means that what is the scientific reason for the mandate? There just isn't any. And I agree with the introduction that you had, Steve. Given that there's no scientific justification, LAPD police should rehire every single person they fired over this mandate. Actually, every employer that fired any employee over this should do this, I think, with back pay. It's only fair.
Exactly right. I mean, it is so outrageous, that they've done this to you, obviously to your family. The whole thing is it just makes me so angry. What do you see, Michael, happening next? Where is this going? Where's your court case going? Can it help you and others?
Well, we're hoping to set precedent with this court case, Steve. We're suing on several issues. Most notably, it's going to be the unconstitutionality itself of the religious exemptions that the department is forcing its employees and actually all city members to fill out what is essentially an 8-page document. And what they're trying to do is get each employee to give up their own religious beliefs in order to maintain their employment with the city. And we see that as completely unconstitutional, as our rights to our own medical sovereignty. These are gifts from God and not from government. We shouldn't have to explain our belief system to anyone.
Completely right. I'm so pleased that obviously it's awful that you're in this situation, but so pleased that you're standing up, you're fighting, and we're honoured to have you here to share your story. Thank you for what you're doing. Jay, just before we go, I'd love to have you weigh in on another story I saw this week that I just thought was really, unbelievable. But I mean, we use that word so much these days. Moderna applying for emergency use authorization. We're told the pandemic's over, by the way. Emergency use authorization to vaccinate tiny babies. What do you think of that?
I mean, the study apparently studied about 6,000 kids. They didn't even look to see if it caused the disease. The only thing they're looking at is, does it produce antibodies? The reason why they couldn't look to see if it caused severe disease in kids is because it doesn't. They would have to essentially to test every single child to be able to test whether the vaccine actually prevents severe disease in kids. This is not usual basis for approving a vaccine in children. You can't just say, oh, it produces antibodies and therefore we should use it in every kid. They'll get mandated in every kid the way that we're going. I think the FDA, if it's doing the responsible thing, will reject this application.
Well, there seems to be a massive kind of campaign. You hear people in the media talking about what a relief that we can now vaccinate our babies.
I mean, the problem is that the public has been scared based by public health officials who very irresponsibly have panicked parents over the risk to children. The number of children that have died during the pandemic, over the 2-year period of the pandemic, is on par with a very, very bad flu season in past years before the pandemic. And so I think what you have is people panicking over something that just doesn't make sense.
Exactly right. As you've said right from the beginning, and we've been proud to host you to make that point against all the madness that's out there. Jay, great to see you again. Stay with us. Much more up ahead.